Hi, you guys. Hello. Hi, Lauren. Oh, it's good to see you.
Oh, wow. Lauren is with us tonight from Malaysia. That's so exciting. I love international. Yes, yay.
Yes, I
Oh,
love it. And I
wow.
love
And
it because I've
Jill
been,
and
oh,
Heather Lee from Australia. Oh, and Natalie from Ohio.
awesome. You guys, we're so
Wonderful.
glad you're here.
Canada. We have four countries representing right now.
Oh my goodness. I
Okay.
love this so much. I'm just clicking everything open. We don't normally do webinars this way.
No.
We normally do something else. So I'm just having to get all the little boxes open. Wonderful, beautiful faces. Because
Yeah.
well, actually, we can't see your faces, but I can see your names,
No.
your initials,
Yeah.
and
We
what
can
you're
see your
from.
names. We
And
can see you pop up in the
yes,
chat.
and Connecticut and
Um,
Missouri, and oh, wonderful. Oh,
Wonderful.
Angel, you are also from Malaysia. This
Yeah.
is so wonderful. And hi, Charlene,
And
South Carolina.
Charlene.
You're just right south from where I am. And you're going to find out very soon. This is a backdrop, not a real bookcase. And both my dogs are trying to play with it right now. So I don't have a magical bookcase that moves, but I do have two dogs that wait until I get onto Zoom to start messing with it. They left it alone all day long. So yes.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good to see you all.
Hi,
Hi.
Tiffany.
I grew up in Florida, so
Yep.
I'm just connecting with you guys in so many ways. We are so glad you're here. So Emily, are you having to approve as everybody is coming in, or is it
No,
automatic?
it's
Awesome.
automatic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to get
No.
started. I don't
No,
want
that would take a lot.
Screen and then we don't see everybody.
Yeah.
You guys, we also have an amazing support specialist, Kathleen. And she helps us with everything behind the scenes. At some point, you will talk with her, see her, be a part of her world, but she couldn't come tonight. And so we feel like we're missing a third wheel here that she normally really helps us out a lot behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And let me see, did I just hear somebody just got their first tutoring client? Let me see who that is. I can't see the full name. Is it maybe Natalie?
Natalie did. Yay, Natalie. Congratulations.
Awesome.
What a
that is
love
really
that feeling.
Wonderful. Yay.
That's
this
great.
Is so cool. We're so glad that you are taking time to come and be with us tonight. For some of you, it might be late. For those of you all around the world, I have no idea what time it is. It might be the middle of the night. It might be breakfast.
Somebody said it was already Friday in Malaysia. And I was like, whoa.
Excellent. That is right. Lauren, when we were talking, we were trying to figure out the time difference when we were chatting. And yeah, you were already in the next day, weren't you? So, so that is so wonderful. So glad to see you guys. And so, yeah, we're here really to talk about your life as an educator or going into education. I know some of you, when you had messaged me or commented to join the group, you weren't necessarily doing any of this yet, and that's totally fine. That's what's wonderful is that there are so many different ways to be a tutor, and there are so many different ways to get started. And so we're really excited to share this with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my screen share, and we're going to kind of hop back and forth, and I'm going to do a little bit of showing you like which buttons and settings to click as we're going along so that we don't miss important things. So we're going to keep the chat up, but when we're screen sharing, I don't know if I'll always be able to see the chat. We would have to click on it. And so just know that the chat is here, and we're going to talk about this in a minute to kind of chat with each other. We are going to go in there to see some of your answers, but we also are going to have a Q&A at the end. And so there's going to be something special for that. So let me go ahead and share my screen and move all this around, you guys. Canva. You guys, if you don't know yet, Canva allows you to do really wonderful, beautiful presentations. And so I was always a fan of PowerPoint. And then Canva came into the world and started really making it where you could present your presentations. And now it's just, I'm just team Canva all the way. So yeah, I have to tell you that.
We do love Canva. Yes.
Yes.
Big fans.
Absolutely. So if you could just really quickly let us know, I was going to try and join as a guest on my phone. And I still might see, so I can see what you guys see, but maybe just give us a thumbs up or let us know, yes, if you can see the full screen share. And if so, we will keep on moving along. I'm going to also try and join from my phone. It's always nice to be able to see. I don't know how many of you do presentations like this. It's nice to be able to see what people see to make sure. So so tonight we are here to talk about how we can really look at what's possible for our career and our lives as educators. Because we tend to kind of think education is one path, one direction, at least for a lot of us. I think, we left college and then we went out into the world and pretty much kind of looked at many, many years in the classroom, right? And didn't really realize that those skills that we had developed are actually very valuable in our lives. Right, Emily?
Yes, I think like Jill said, when we went into college to become teachers, I think we had sort of the singular mindset that this would be the pathway into the classroom. And that's that. And we're going to talk about how it's not. There can be different avenues that can come out of becoming a teacher.
Yes, absolutely. So here's what we're going to talk about today, because today we're not really talking so much about the logistics of starting a tutoring business. So this is not the nitty gritty, how to invoicing, things like that. Although when we get to the Q&A part, if you want to ask us some questions, the only thing with those kinds of questions are they rarely can be answered in 60 seconds.
Right.
So they're much more in depth. So we'll definitely try to answer what questions you have, but just know that tonight is a little bit less about logistics of starting a tutoring business. Although again, we can answer some of those questions, but it's more about kind of like thinking about the big picture of our education career. And so we're going to talk about some of those myths and misconceptions that I would say probably all of us either have heard or have thought. I know I definitely had ideas in my head of why it couldn't work, right? Like why this not be viable at all.
Right.
We're going to talk about how to create a career path that helps you step into that biggest vision for your career and life. And so, again, looking beyond the tactical and more about that big picture journey.
Yes.
And then Emily, what's this last one? Because this is I think one of my favorite parts.
Right. The key ways a private practice can help you build skills and experiences that give you options and embrace new opportunities. So what we're trying not only to do is, besides having you look at the big picture, but also sort of realize future potential and the different opportunities that can come up from having a tutoring business.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, click the wrong thing. All right. So here's our little bit of housekeeping for as we are going through this.
Okay. Yes.
So this is important because this is what's on a webinar and not on regular Zoom meetings. So here's how we're going to use these different things that you see as your options for interaction. So obviously you guys already know where the chat is. So we're going to use the chat for you all to talk with each other, but then also there'll be a couple places where we're going to ask for your feedback, ask for your ideas about things. And the chat is the place to put that. But the chat is also where we might miss some things because we might not be able to keep up with the chat the whole time, although we will download it later so that if we miss something important, we can totally address it in our private pop-up group. Okay. Raising your hand right now, we probably won't use it too much, but we might just say, go ahead and click that raise your hand button if you want to come on here and ask this question. I'm not really sure. And then the Q&A, that's the important one. So at the end of this presentation, we set aside time just for Q&A. So whatever those questions are that you have about whether a tutoring business would work for you, anything that kind of comes up during this presentation, anything like that, you're going to put it there in the Q&A. Click that button, submit your question so that when we get there, that is where we're going to look for questions. So when we get to that part, we're not going to look through the chat. We're going to look through the Q&A. So it's going to be two different areas.
And Julie was wondering, are there any plans to get into the logistics and tactical aspects at another point in time?
Possibly. So we have a lot of different trainings. We have a cohort that's coming up that we'll talk to you about. Yes. And if there are some specific things you want to know, we also have like a whole archive of videos on our Facebook page, on YouTube, where we discuss different things like how we handle student cancellations and, setting up procedures and different things like that. So if you'll definitely put the question in there, and if we can answer it tonight, we will.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's a little bit more in depth, we might set some time aside. We might also do something in the pop-up group. The reason why we wanted to do the pop-up group was to give us some options, so that after this webinar, we might decide to have another Q&A at some point, like in there. So, we definitely do not want to leave you high and dry. We just know how much can realistically be discussed.
What we can do in our space of time. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And to sort of like keep in line with the goals that we have to be able to present our information with all of you. So.
Yes. And so I already see a Q in the Q&A section. So that's awesome. So so just put them in there, and that we will start with those and get to as many of them as we can at the end.
Perfect.
Awesome. So when we look at this journey of being an educator, right? Emily and I both came together to start Tutor Success Academy after we had kind of already gone through our own paths. But even though at first I thought, wow, our paths are kind of similar, because I think we both started our tutoring businesses around the same time, even though we didn't know each other, our stories are actually us to start the tutoring business to begin with, because we both were classroom teachers who, moved into actually full-time practice. But I think both of us also were part-time while we were teaching as well. So Emily, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started with the whole tutoring game?
Yes. You know what? Even before I was completely Orton Gillingham trained, I had always had a little side gig of tutoring. Even when I was a brand new teacher, it was something that I did either in the summertime or after school. So I was always looking for, as we all do, a way to supplement my teaching income, especially as a new teacher. So, but as I went into Orton Gillingham training, my purpose for becoming Orton Gillingham trained was not only to learn about how to help students in my classroom with dyslexia, but I really felt more purposeful with wanting to hone my craft and go into one particular area of expertise, and that was reading intervention. And I knew Orton Gillingham really was the gold standard for that. And I knew down the road that I wasn't really envisioning myself being a classroom teacher for 30 plus years. I just knew that really wasn't where I saw myself. I was constantly exploring different paths, but I knew I don't really want to go into school administration, even though I had family members that would tease me and call me Principal Gibbons sometimes because sounded a little rigid to them. I still get teased about that.
You're a bit type A, so I can see that. Yeah.
So no, I was really not into admin positions at all. But I love the idea of being in private practice because I could be my own boss. And I wanted a bit more control over how I wanted my hours to run. And I was able to, once again, just focus on doing one thing really, really well, rather than feeling the overwhelm of constantly being thrown new curriculums, new, directives coming at me from school administration. And my husband and I, we were starting a family. So I had completed my Orton Gillingham training before I had kids, thankfully, because it was pretty rigorous, and then became a mom and went into private practice. And I tell people that it really is the best of both worlds, because even though I'm not in the classroom, which I do miss sometimes, my stress level really thanks me for making this decision, which is just to be able to work one-on-one with the student, develop a really beautiful relationship with them, with their families, and be just so helpful and impactful in their lives, and also be there for my family because I'm able to set the schedule that I want. But out of that, there were a lot of other opportunities that came that I didn't realize were going to happen. They were pretty exciting, and I'll get into that after.
Yeah. I was like, don't give away too much.
I'm not.
Yeah. And my journey was a little bit different. So when I was a teacher, I'm putting some of these things in here simply because I like kind of want to share with you all that I never imagined I'd be leaving the classroom. Sorry, let me click one thing. I was just trying to see. Okay. My view on my phone is weird, but as long as the view that you guys see is fine, I'm not going to worry about it. So I was a classroom teacher for 13 years. And I was one of those teachers that I was obsessed with my classroom. I lived, breathed my classroom, everything. I loved all of it. And so, I mean, it was what I did at night on the weekends. Like my favorite thing to do on a Sunday was to go to Borders or Barnes and Noble. I forget which one was around at the time, and just get a coffee from the cafe and just sit in the education aisle and have piles of books around me. Like, and that never went away. Like that was that was my idea of fun. And I was, a teacher of the year. I was a mentor to student teachers, other teachers, team leaders, all that. So I was never one of the, like, I wasn't somebody who was like, disenchanted and like, kind of negative. I was all like, woohoo! Like I never, ever. But I went through a couple cycles of burnout. And of course, a part of that was the inability, or I guess maybe I just didn't choose to have a better life balance, work-life balance. I just kept giving. And I never could figure out how to make time for my life and my health. And also just not basically be a workaholic, right? And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty common thing for educators. And so for me, when I started to feel like, I wonder if there's something else, that was very unsettling to me because this was the only path. Like, no, like, this is what I do. Like, I could imagine my retirement party in 30 years. Like, I really did not see anything else. And so for me, it really kind of came from loving teaching so much, but getting to that place where I was just so exhausted all the time that I truly could not see how I was going to continue this for another, 25 years at that level. But I also couldn't figure out how to not do more when they kept putting more on our plates. Right. So for me, it really, I always told myself if I ever became somebody who was feeling burnt out all the time, that I would, consider something. I just never thought it would happen to me, but it did. And so you can really love teaching and also realize that maybe there's something else out there for you. And I just really didn't know what that was. And then the other thing was I also had trained in Orton Gillingham. I hadn't gone through the full training. It was classroom training for like a year. But what happened was I wasn't able to use it. So I was so excited about the things I was learning, but I had 95 students and my classes came through for like in 50-minute cycles. And so I would be like, oh, if I had time, the things I could help you with. But I just didn't. And I realized I was expecting, I wanted to be able to help in a different way that I couldn't do in the container that I was in. And there was no path that would allow me to do that. And so my story really kind of comes from, just kind of a little bit of burnout, but I did a little bit of grieving when it was time to leave, honestly, because I never thought I was going to leave. And so that decision was a really big decision at the time. So
yeah. And Jill and I both had something in common. We were both those teachers first ones to arrive in the parking lot. We can identify with that. I mean, we put our heart and soul into being classroom teachers for many, many years. And so we certainly can identify with all of you who are still in the classroom. Last to leave too. Absolutely. And it didn't matter what day of the week it was. And on a personal level, I will say my physical health definitely took a toll. I was a major IBS sufferer. I had a lot of anxiety and I really had to deal with those health issues on a personal level and get them under control. And by making this change in my life, it really has made a difference, not only for me professionally, but also I would say physically, emotionally, all of that, the whole package.
Yep, absolutely. I think a lot of us have been there. I would imagine a bunch of you that are watching right now can at least relate to this at some period for some period of time in your journey. And maybe not. Like sometimes it might just be the possibility of, hey, I need some more flexibility and things like that. But this is the path that kind of got us to this place. And so when we think about moving into having a tutoring business, there are some myths and some misconceptions, and definitely, you know, I thought them when I was like, what? No, I can't do that.
Love this part.
This won't work. Like, what are you talking about? And I can even think of like 3 more off the top of my head, that we didn't even put on here. We just tried to think of a few, but here's where we would love to see this in the chat. So I'm going to probably stop screen sharing in a second. Have you heard or thought of any misconceptions or things that might make you think that having a tutoring private practice like just isn't a viable option? Like what? No, that just wouldn't work, right? So I would love to hear from you. And we're going to start giving out some gift cards, some Amazon gift cards tonight, just because it's fun. And so I don't even know if Emily knows. I'm just like, you know, we've done gift cards before. I think I mentioned it, but if I didn't, we're just going to start giving them out. And so what we're going to do is right now, if you could share in the chat something that might keep you from thinking tutoring is a viable option, or maybe you thought of it, or maybe you heard other people say it, even if you went, no way, that's not true. We would love to hear what you have to say. So let's see here. Oh,
we've got some.
It's a good one. So I kind of want to stop sharing for a second. Let me see. I'm a little scared, you guys. Why does it say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to stop sharing only because it says the button looks different than what it normally does. Oh, no, go back. Okay, well, now you guys are going to see some of
I was taking a few notes.
Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I do wish I could see this bigger though. Conceptions or things that are getting in the way. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll through, but Emily, also, if you hear any, and you guys, we have no fancy way of doing gift cards. I'm just going to like, grabbing it. We're just going to grab a name, but we're going to do it a couple times tonight, you guys. So let's see here. Clients won't pay what my service is worth. Okay, that's a good one. Let's see here. Okay, you won't make enough money. What else are you seeing, Emily?
I've got a bunch of them. So we've got people feeling fearful, where if people about, worried about not being able to pay off maybe a tuition bill, benefits, retirement, stability, just managing a business in general, not being able to find clients, missing the classroom. We see there's a lot of common trends coming up in the chat, and we get it. Those are all things that are they're valid. And I'm also seeing isolation. And believe me, I definitely, that was a concern of mine, which is one of the reasons that I really had branched out to start my private community, and also to join up with Jill to do TSA, so that so that things wouldn't feel so isolated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, find friends, find a community, even if it's not us, even if you're not hanging out with us, that's okay. But find some people so that when you're like, how do I do that thing? You have some people to talk to. So not having teaching experience yet, giving up a pension, pricing your services. Okay. Those are all, those are all things that give you hesitation and make you think, ooh, I'm not so sure about this. Okay. Emily, do you want to pick our first gift card winner?
Oh
Randomly
my goodness.
pick some.
All right. This is tough. So I'm just gonna go.
I'm
just gonna close my eyes and I'm just gonna scroll. Okay. All right. The person that I have chosen is, I just want to get that person's name. Okay. Tara, pricing your service. It's TL. Pricing your service is difficult for me. So Tara.
Okay. Tara Lear,
I'm just trying to see the whole name.
I'm writing it down. Okay. Yay. So you're going to get
congratulations.
I'm still trying to think. You can email us, or we will, after all of this is done, I should be able to grab your email. So I'm writing down that you are the winner on this one. But if you don't hear from us like by tomorrow, send us an email to tsasupport@tutorsuccessacademy.com, or just message us on Facebook or Instagram. Just find us one of the ways, and we will get you your gift card. And so we're going to do that a couple times today. Okay, you guys, because it's fun to give gifts. Yes.
Yeah,
so
we like
who
to give
could not
prizes.
use a gift card? Yes, we love to give prizes. Okay, I'm gonna close the chat. And now here are some of the ones that we kind of came up with when we thought about what we've heard, but also what we've heard from tutors that we work with. So, it's not just what's coming in our heads. So tell you what, I'll read some, and then maybe you can read some, Emily. So the first one, you guys already said, tutoring is not profitable. We can tell you it can be, but you have to plan to be profitable.
Yes.
It won't just roll in,
yeah.
Come in front door down.
I think our members have proved
yes
that it can be.
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
But
it takes planning.
Right, exactly. You can't just kind of wing it and go, hey, like it takes, if that becomes one of your goals, which it doesn't have to be, it just can be, then you plan for that profit, right? So another misconception is that you have to leave the classroom to benefit from having a private tutoring practice. Like it's one thing or the other. But no, that's not true. We know lots of tutors who never plan on leaving the classroom, and they have other goals for their tutoring businesses.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight.
Great.
I've heard this one too. And again, some of these, could be true if you wanted them to be. So you should just work for a tutoring agency. So you could work for a tutoring agency. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You won't earn as much if you are running your own business. So you would just have to decide. But some people think, nope, that's the way to go. You find Sylvan or something like that, and they hire you as a tutor. And that's like the path. Yeah. And again, we don't think there's any one right way to do anything. We think there are so many ways for you to make this work for you. This one comes up so much. Teachers should willingly give their services for free outside of the classroom.
Teachers are very caring, giving people, but teachers should absolutely be respected and compensated for their time.
Yes. And so that is a big misconception and something that you break through as far as deciding what you want your tutoring business, what your goals are for your tutoring business. Okay. So that is something that we can definitely bust that myth, because that does not at all have to be true. Right. Emily, do you want to hit the ones on the right?
Yes. Okay. So, nobody will want to pay for private services when school is for free.
Nope.
So, think about that. Sure. Are schools able to offer everything that a private tutoring service could do for, in a one-on-one situation? Something to think about. Teachers care too much to be good at business. Yes, we are very, very caring individuals. However, we have a whole set of skills in our tool belts that include being able to get into a business mindset to be successful. Think about it. In the classroom, management, right, has to take place. Same with running a business. So a lot of the things that you are able to do efficiently in your classrooms cross over into being able to run a business with having systems in place and procedures and policies. Tutoring is only something needed for children. Oh my goodness. This is so interesting because we've met so many TSA members who love working with adults. Even in my private Orton Gillingham group, we just had a message the other day, someone saying, how can I volunteer my time or get into tutoring in the prisons? They just felt a calling. So there's definitely a need for adult tutoring services for sure. Tutoring only became popular during the pandemic. Sure, it did. Okay, there were a lot of factors at play there, but tutoring has always been something that there's always been a need, and there always will be. And there aren't enough students who need tutoring. I think that comes from a place where not really maybe thinking outside the box a little bit, how we're all sort of like fitting into this one path of, this person just needs homework help and this person just needs help with, studying for tests. I think there are plenty of different scenarios where families are seeking qualified tutors to help their children for sure. And, there's even the notion that some people don't even want to use the word tutor because some people kind of feel like a little bit of a less than a classroom teacher role in some way. But you really are a specialist, I think, in a lot of ways when you are tutoring privately. So I don't think anybody should just add the words like just on there.
Anytime you say just
you really
you're bringing
minimize.
yourself down, right?
Yeah.
And we don't need to do that. So
Absolutely.
so for all of these misconceptions, for every myth that we've heard, we know somebody who is proving that is not true right now. So we didn't get permission from many people because there's stories that I wanted to share in here, but we're going to share them in another way down the road.
Right.
But for every one of those, I can say, nope. And I want to tell the story of, one person or another, because honestly, we've seen every single one of those completely just obliterated. Because the beautiful thing about it is when you start a tutoring business or a private practice education business, you get to set the parameters. You get to set what that looks like and what that works, how that works for you. And so there are no rules. So you get to make that look however you want it to look. And Emily and I both have, when we came together, we both had pretty different tutoring businesses as far as, her skill sets and my skill sets and our experiences and who we focused on working with and how we focused our services. And mine have changed and evolved over the years. From when I first started tutoring, I've had multiple office arrangements, situations where I've worked with other people. I've worked completely by myself. I've gone to, renting the top floor of a building to going to a teeny tiny perfect for one person office. There's so many different ways of making it work. And the beautiful thing is that it can evolve. So whatever you set out to do in the beginning, it might look very different in 3 or 4 years because you start to realize how much potential you have.
Right. I mean, just for a perfect example, right now, I'm in my own office in the basement of my home. Whereas when I began tutoring, I was traveling to people's homes, but I no longer do that. And that's one of the biggest moves that sort of changed the way I tutor children, and that has just been extremely beneficial for me. It works very well for me. Other people like to travel, but that is really one of the reasons why we love having that freedom to make those decisions.
Yep, absolutely. And so I want to remind you all really quickly. So so right now I can't really see the chat, what's going on, but I see that we have little chat bubbles.
Great.
If you have any questions that you actually also want us to answer in the Q&A, make sure to put it in that Q&A section.
Definitely.
I've seen some questions pop up, but again, they disappear so quickly.
Yeah. And
and in a few slides, we're going to open back the chat again.
Right. So. And there's a few questions about Orton Gillingham training and so forth. We'll try to see if we can get into something like that at the very end, but that's not really.
Or maybe just we might just direct you to where Emily has all that on her website. So there's probably some other, there are places that we can kind of steer you and get you going. And I see somebody's raised your hand. I will check that when I'm done screen sharing. Okay. Because right now when I'm screen sharing, I have very limited options of what I can see. But I do see that somebody raise their hand, which would mean that you probably want to talk. So I will do that in just a minute.
Definitely.
Okay. So now, as you're kind of looking at all of this and thinking about all this, I want to kind of get you to start thinking about your path, right? Your possibilities, even if you are here. And in that, when you joined the pop-up group, when you said, I'm kind of curious, but I don't even know if this is for me, that's totally fine. So here is where I would like to see if any of these kind of resonate with you. And then I'm going to have a question for you guys to put in the chat. And then I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can actually see some of the chat. So have you ever thought any of these things? Okay. Have you ever thought about what you could do beyond the classroom? Has that ever crossed your mind? Have you ever felt like, is there something else out there for me? This isn't working anymore. That was me, you guys. I didn't know what was out there, but I was like, something isn't working, but I don't really know what else there is. Like, isn't this it? Right.
I know. I remember when I first started trying to think of options, I was like, well, maybe I could like, maybe be like a museum presenter when kids come for field trips, things like that. But I was like,
Yeah.
I don't think I really want to do that.
And they were like, no, I don't really want to completely let go of all the training I've done and everything to something different. Right.
And this was before I went into OG training. This was like sort of just
when
exploring.
the world was just like, hey, who knows?
Like any ideas I could think of. Yeah. So.
Right. Are you waiting for your school or your district to create a new position or opportunities to advance your career? So that is one thing that I had thought of. So as a teacher, I thought, wow, I wish there was a position like this, because I had my reading degree, things like that. And so I was like, well, pretty much like at the schools I was at, it was like, sometimes there was 1 or 2 years where they had instructional coaches or things like that, but then that went away. Right. And when I looked at these paths, I was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if there was like this other opportunity, those kinds of things. And so have you ever thought about that? Yeah. Emily, will you read like the next 2? I'm going to mute real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the next question, have you thought about wearing a different hat, trying a different role, but still stay in education? So I had thought down the road, well, I wasn't really interested in being like a school administrator, principal, superintendent. But I served on many mentoring committees, coaching, hiring committees, and so forth. But I had toyed with perhaps wanting to pursue becoming like the reading specialist for our district or something like that. But I really did feel the calling with Orton Gillingham. I think that sort of one of the sad facts about that at the time was that it really wasn't widely accepted in my school district. It was not something that they thought would be very valuable, to be perfectly honest. So that's why going into private practice has really helped me become more of, sticking to my one niche, my one area of expertise and grow that. So, and the next question, I'm sorry, I don't know if I just missed a question, Jill. I don't think I did.
Think so.
Okay. All right.
I think we're good.
All right. And so I'm also like peering over at the chat on the side, which is really fabulous because I love the conversations. So I'm like trying to look at that. And of course, okay. Do you ever wish you had the freedom to teach the way you want to teach without getting permission from administration? Holy smokes. That is me all over. I just wanted to be able to do what I knew was best for kids and not have somebody that hadn't been in the classroom in a long, long time or barely taught at all tell me that I needed to implement this program, ASAP and show data to show growth. And when I knew, in fact, that like, this is really not what my kids need right now. So yes, now I truly feel like I have the freedom to go through the training that I know I need to be able to use evidence-based practice to help children who really struggle with reading. So I have a lot more freedom in that way with what I do. But when I was a classroom teacher, no, I was told what I needed to use. So, and certainly, training was offered, but sometimes you don't get that training. And that can be really frustrating. So I know we see there, like there's academic support, but they're not getting it in the public schools. And there's just so many different scenarios. And
there's a lot of red tape.
Yeah, there are. All right.
Yep. And then my last question for you all is, have you ever thought this? Do you wish you could still work with kids, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to leave the kids.
Right.
But have the freedom, right, to actually create your own schedule and focus solely on like what you're most passionate about teaching.
Right.
So it's that little thing that teachers never really get to think about, which is, what do you want though? Like, what would really make you happy? What would be a really lovely balance of getting to still work with kids, but what if you also had the freedom to kind of create a schedule that would still allow you to maybe, you know, volunteer in your child's classroom, or you know, take college classes during the day, or have certain days that are like whatever your scheduling needs are, right? Have you ever thought, well, I love working with kids, but I really do wish I had some more flexibility to kind of create a different kind of schedule other than maybe like a school schedule. So that would be another one as well. And I pulled up the chat on my phone, so I know how to look at these things now.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, we still, like Jill and I, at the core of all this, we love working with kids. I mean, this is why we went into teaching. We love being with children.
Yes.
And being able to have the freedom, not only with what you teach, but also to be with kids and still make an impact in their lives. I mean, that is just, like I said at the very beginning, it's really the best of both worlds.
Right.
So,
but about that impact though, here's the lovely thing. And this is something that just popped into my head. That was a true fear of mine every year. So there are some things I'm really great at teaching. There are some things that I'm very well trained at, right? So I have my EDS. I you know, I do not suffer for lack of instructional courses, right? But I always focus on reading, right? But at any year, at the end of the year, they could say, hey, you're moving to 4th grade science. And I'd be like, wait, what now? I don't quite understand how electricity works. Are you sure you want me to do that? Like, they could shift me to math, because they would say, you know what, you'll figure it out. And sure, I would, but would that be using my best talents if I'm like one step ahead of them, right? And so when I think about that part of what you're most passionate about, when you are building a tutoring business or any kind of education business, whether it is part-time, full-time, you get to focus on, here are my strengths. And that is what's really lovely. So here's our question for the chat. And I'm actually going to stop screen sharing in a second so I can look at some of these awesome comments you're making.
Now.
And here's the question, and we're going to give away another gift card, you know?
Yes.
Here's your question. Is there something you wish you could be doing as an educator that you don't have the chance to do right now? And try, like, you don't have to be limited. You could be like, oh man, I really would love to do like fossils with kids, whatever it is, because guess what? There is a way to do.
There's a way to do that
you want to do. I promise you, there really truly is. We've seen so many things. We've done so many different things. So in the chat, for potentially being chosen for a prize in this very magical way of just picking a name, is there something you wish you could be doing as an educator that you can't do right now? Whether it's just through circumstances, whether it is through like some of you are saying your district doesn't offer it. You know, the need is there, but there is no structure in your school system set up to have that type of intervention, things like that. Maybe it's just that you want to do some of these more fun projects and things like that. Oh, it's flying.
It is. I'm sorry. My eyes are like, okay.
Yay. But now I know how to look at your chats. Yeah. So I'm in the game now. Okay, let's see what some of these are. And while we're doing this, Emily, really quickly, will you just check, is your view on gallery or speaker?
My view is on gallery.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
You're on that, because I think you're the host. And so I can't actually see what everybody else
sees. You were actually the host.
Oh, I'm the host. Okay, then. Okay, see, we just had to check things. Okay.
Yeah.
Because my phone was showing something weird. And so I just wanted to make sure, as long as we're mostly seeing things. Okay, so let's see. Oh, by the way.
Keep those ideas flowing. I mean, like I had an idea at one point that I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to my community center and see if anybody's interested in wanting to sign their kids up to learn how to learn cursive handwriting. Run a cursive handwriting class, because there are so many parents complaining that the kids didn't learn cursive handwriting in school. And that's not something that I was able to pull off, because I got a lot of things, just a few, but I just love that idea. And I've kind of always wanted to do that.
Hey, here's the thing. You still have time. You're not done yet.
No. Yeah. So we'll see. I might just
that's a beautiful thing.
I might just create a cursive handwriting class someday and play classical music in the background, and just because I really love teaching cursive handwriting. So.
Absolutely. I mean, you can do it. I believe in you. I mean, you've done a lot of things, Emily. I'm seeing helping students be more successful. I'm seeing a lot of like trying to do more intensive interventions and things that kids need, but that it's your school system's not set up for. Right. I see helping with science. My goodness, like these things that just have been getting pushed to the side, or they've been highly targeted to standardized testing and less about like the science of it all and things like that. More one-on-one intensive support, tutoring children through OGM Wilson, being a reading specialist. That was a big thing. Let me see what that is. That's Read. I went to become a reading specialist, and then I moved somewhere and they just didn't have them. And I was like, I guess I didn't realize. I was like, what do you mean you don't have them? And they were like, no, we don't have them. And I was like, okay. Really? You just don't have them? And I was very surprised. Yeah. And I know at the time, well, wow. I mean, I'm glad I got all that training, but like I got that next degree in certification because this was specifically the path I wanted to take. So, right, exactly. So this is where, again, sometimes you have the skill, you have the talent, you have the certifications, you have all the things, you've checked off all the boxes, but there's no place for you to go and do it.
Right. I just saw another good one, and this is a real need: executive function training. I mean, that is hugely impactful and really sought after. People who can help children with their executive function skills, with organization and so forth. Those are all like real lifelong skills that a lot of kids need help with. So yeah, I'm seeing that pop up a few times. That's great.
Wonderful. And Dee Ross, I love your focus too of helping low-income students. And there are definitely ways that you can do that. Yeah. So we've met with some people who've started nonprofits, but you can also do things. So like one thing that I had done when I started my tutoring business, I kind of like had two purposes, like two paths I wanted to ultimately focus on. And one was working with students with dyslexia. The other was working with homeschooling students, not necessarily students with dyslexia or even intensive reading needs, but being a bridge to help families. And for both of those, I introduced group programs to make it more affordable. So I knew that when people came to me, I would have private services, one-on-one, and there was that structure, but I also had group offerings and things like that to try to make it more feasible as well. Right. And you can also get like local organizations to maybe sponsor tuition for a student. Right. I love that focus. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. And I love that. I love that kind of outreach, especially from local businesses that certainly are looking for opportunities like that to help out local students for sure. Okay. So we've seen some great things pop up.
I'm going to pick one.
Okay.
Stacy Hayward. Stacy, you've been around for a while. We're so glad to see you. So Stacy, so you're moving on, not able to teach the kids. So that was like your reason for separating from the school system, focusing on testing and being in meetings and things like that. So Stacy, thank you so much for participating in the chat and the feedback and the conversations. I'm just writing your name down really quick. I do think you know how to get hold of me, Stacy, but if not, just send us a message and we will get you your Amazon gift card.
Wonderful. So, congratulations.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. So now here are some like key points. Okay. So here are some key takeaways that we want you all to leave with today. So now we talked about misconceptions. We talked about kind of like, well, what we wish we could have, right? Like, wouldn't it be really great if we could do that? And so here, clicking the wrong thing. So here are some key ideas that when you leave today, we at least want you to carry these in your heart, put them in your briefcase, do whatever we want. We want you to take these with you, right?
Yes.
And so these are some of the big ideas that we want you to realize and understand. Again, when we're looking at this big picture of tutoring as a possibility for your career. Okay. And so Emily, if it's cool, I'll read this page and you can do the next one. Okay. So first is that tutoring can fit into many lifestyles and stages of life. So absolutely. And I'm sorry if you guys hear my dog coughing. I might have to mute it in a minute. He's an old man. So he has old man cough. And for some reason, when it's my turn to talk, that's when he decides he needs to cough a little bit. We're gonna try though. I'll get closer to here. So we know tutors who have they immediately went into tutoring, right? So maybe they had young children and they actually never went to a classroom, and their path to tutoring started like they never went to a classroom, or maybe they started as a homeschooling parent and that became their journey, their path, all the way up to people starting their tutoring businesses in retirement as a way to continue to work with kids.
Right.
And retirement and everything in between. Okay. So many different things. If you go to our page, we have an interview with Wendy, who is tutoring while she homeschools, and they travel in their RV.
Love it.
Truly, like it's very flexible, especially now with online learning being such a good option. Tutoring offers flexibility in a lot of ways too. So not only in what you teach, how you offer it, where you go. Do you go meet at libraries, go to people's houses, have an office in your own home, meet in your kitchen, work online, but also so many options as far as what you charge, what your income goals are, what your impact goals are, what is the impact that you want to make and the legacy you want to leave through your tutoring. Right. How does it fit into your lifestyle rather than how does your life fit around work all the time, which is what I never figured out. I was like, well, I guess I just don't have life.
Yeah. And just to speak to that flexibility just for a minute, in the past, if I needed a tutor for one of my own children, which I did, I would have only looked locally. But because I knew of a wonderful tutor that lived in New York and knew she tutored online and was Wilson certified, and I knew would be a good fit for my daughter last year, who was really not making effective progress in reading at all in first grade, I sought her out. And so we were able to create flexibility in 2 different states. And my daughter thrived with this. She's also a TSA member. Have to give a shout out for that. But with this particular tutor, but just the model can look so different. It doesn't have to just be someone local, especially if you're tutoring virtually. So I just want to throw that in there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, gosh, there are so many ways. My goodness. My very first tutoring student, this was something I just fell into. Okay. So it was not, I'm starting a tutoring business. This was before I even thought about starting a tutoring business. My dog groomer had asked me before, hey, do you private tutor? And I was like, no, I don't know. I don't have time. Like, I don't know. And then at some point I eventually was like, okay, tell me more about what's going on. And so she told me what's going on. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do it. And we met in a restaurant next to the mom's grooming salon, and they just saved us a little table in the back. And I just ordered some food to go to be okay. I mean, I got to have food to go, and it was at a time where it wasn't busy. And so we literally met in the corner of a restaurant while they were getting things ready for the dinner rush on the other side. We were tucked away in a little corner in the back, the mom's grooming salon. And so, I mean, my goodness, there's so many ways. There's so many ways to do this.
Right.
So this next one is really important. And I want you to notice both these statements, okay? It's okay to earn well as a professional.
Yes.
They're taught that educators are only in it for the outcome and not in it for the income. And we shouldn't ever have to think about money, right? And we feel this guilt about it. But also, this is our profession. It's our chosen career. Many of us have spent a lot of money on degrees and classes and certifications. And so it is okay to say, I'm a professional and I want to earn well. Yes. It's also okay to use your services and find ways to offer scholarships, find a way to make the services that you are providing more accessible to students. There's no one way to do it and there's no right way to do it. There is just how do you build your business to support your goals and your mission, and that it's all okay. But there's a lot of shaming around charging.
Yeah,
And
I really want to try to eliminate that whole teachers aren't in it for the income, they're in it for the outcome. I really think that whole phrase just needs to be eliminated.
Mhm. Right. Because we can be in it for both,
You
right?
can
We can
be in it
have,
for both.
yeah, we
Yeah,
can have a career where we want to make a
yeah,
tremendous impact,
right.
but not be eating
And
on the
also
needle
support
every
our
day.
families
Yes,
and
exactly.
ourselves and our
Right.
goals.
Mhm. And so that's okay. So that's something
Yeah.
we want you to leave with. If we never talk to you again, we want you to at least go, hey, if I decide I want this, even if this is a small business on the side, it's going to help me earn an income that's going to help me with things that are important for my family, right?
Right.
Then that is wonderful. You don't have to feel bad about it at all.
No, you shouldn't feel bad.
No,
Absolutely. Yes.
no, but it
Okay.
comes up all the
Does.
time. So you
It
guys,
does.
this is not something we've figured out yet. So your professional career can grow outside of the traditional classroom career paths. So that is something, again, I do think it's shifting to where educators are realizing that there is actually a lot of potential. But I would say for quite a long time, it was that you went into the classroom and then either you maybe left the classroom to start a family,
Mm-hmm.
or you left the classroom to move into administration or work in the district or maybe become a trainer, right? But like for the most part, it was I am a teacher and I'm going to be in the classroom. And we didn't really see that there are options beyond like administration. And so just know that there are a kaleidoscope of opportunities where you can kind of craft what do you want your legacy and impact to be. Because truly, with every year, like the world just opens up to us as far as how we can make an impact. Yeah, so it can be that traditional path, but it can also be other things as well. All right. Emily, will you do these?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So opportunities can come from your private services. And so, sure, I started off with my private tutoring practice, but I began to see through that practice that there were other opportunities that could come out of it. Like there was a need for resources that needed to be created to be able to use with my students who had dyslexia. There were opportunities to be able to meet others within the Orton Gillingham community or the dyslexia advocacy community that we could get together and collaborate, whether it be online or in person. Those opportunities started to arise after my presence through not just my private tutoring business, but as I began to grow my online presence.
Mhm.
So that's just, there's some there. I'll get into this in a little bit in just a minute. Private practice gives you the chance to branch out and network with more educators and specialists. And that's so true. So someone was talking about one of the fears they had at the beginning was that it would feel kind of isolating. And I absolutely 100% identify with that feeling of isolation. And that is why I had started an Orton Gillingham community of other trained people so that I could find my people, because I didn't know a lot of people at the time who were Orton Gillingham trained. And I wanted to just bounce ideas off, get advice, just ask questions, just go back and forth and just have discussion about the approach and tips, anything just to share. And so that came out of my beginning tutoring practice as well, and then just meeting families in my community, asking me to do speaking engagements, asking me to do dyslexia awareness during the month of October, things like that. I just meeting people in the community has grown into an opportunity for me to do monthly presentations for an early childhood grant, where I'm helping not just teachers, but I'm helping families, things like that. So there's a lot of different creative ideas that can sort of pop out of these tutoring businesses. And you may see that you're able to spread your impact even wider by expanding outside your bubble. So I knew I had to grow my online community, but I also saw the need to start creating resources to be able to help other Orton Gillingham educators like myself. There was a big need for that. There was a need for community. There was a need for support. So out of that tutoring business and also wanting to learn more about dyslexia came this opportunity in the online world. And I am incredibly grateful for that. It's been quite a journey. I mean, I'm coming up on 9 years of having the online presence of outside of my private practice. I've been tutoring a lot longer than that, but it really has just been amazing. So my point of all this is that I guess there's so much more than feeling like you're just in your own little tutoring world. There's a lot more opportunity that can come, whether it's speaking engagements or giving presentations, anything really, creating resources, creating online communities, things like that. Even just advocacy and helping families, which is a big need. So
yeah, there really is. There's so much potential. And so this brings us all to this idea that teaching, it doesn't have to be just like the single path that you follow, right? Your skills and experiences actually truly open up a world of options you didn't even realize that you had. And we don't say that lightly. We say that having worked with hundreds of tutors and seeing all the cool, interesting things that they are doing. And some are just doing small little practices. That's it. They have like 2 or 3 kids and that's all they want. And that's wonderful. And then there are some that have 2 or 3 kids, but also are consulting with schools or are doing some parent workshops. Or there's so many things that you could do. And we want you to realize that that is possible for you when we start thinking, hey, I can be a teacher and like, what else could be available to me? And so this is where we want you to think. This is not necessarily going to be something you'll put in the chat because I am looking, we definitely got to keep moving along because it's been an hour, but this is the big picture here is if you could design a career path that allowed you to step into the biggest version of yourself, what would that look like?
Wow. This is a big question.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, you're probably not going to have a little bulleted chatted answer for that, but I did want to go ahead and show you really quickly that in your webinar action guide, you do have a place to start thinking of that. Okay. Excellent. So like, I will say something I'm good at is dreaming. I am really good at going, what would I want this to look like? And like, I can feel it. I can taste it. I can imagine the direction that I want to go. Right. Yeah. And that's something that we want for you to do as well too. Like have that vision of what truly could I envision for myself if I could tap into all of my potential. Okay. And so when you have your guide and like, this is not to really be completed now as we're talking, but when we're done, maybe start going through it. And we have some places where you can start to map out what that might look like, that big vision of yourself. Like start really like put it down on paper because you might forget about it. And then later look at it and go, oh yeah, that would be really nice. Right. So getting kind of clear on what you think could be possible really would be wonderful. And so now what that leads us to is how a tutoring business. So the whole goal of this is how could a tutoring business actually help you get there? Now we're just going to read the bullets and not talk about them because I'm seeing time, friends. Yeah. So I'm like, this is just how it goes. Right. Oh, thank you, Natalie. If any of you have to leave, we know it's getting late. I know this will all be recorded. And so if you have your Q&A in there, we can answer that later. So here are some ways, because again, this webinar today is not about all the different things and showing you how to do them all. It's showing you that a tutoring business can be that kind of gateway to help you to do that. Okay. So how can a private tutoring business be that stepping stone, right, to that vision that you have for yourself? And so Emily, do you just want to like take turns reading the bullets?
Yes. Okay.
Does that sound good?
So having a private practice helps you learn how to relate to students and parents in a different, way. Yes, I feel like I have more time to be able to build relationships in that way, for sure. And that is a unique situation where I really wasn't able to do that as a classroom teacher with 25 students. That's the reality.
Yeah. And I said I wasn't going to do commentary, but I am, because I'm like, the reality is when you're relating with families and it's not through the lens of, well, the district says I have to do this. And when you have, it changes the relationship you have with families.
Absolutely.
And it's a really beautiful thing. So that's something that a private practice do that leads you to that. How do I want to support families and the community in the future when I am the one steering that ship, right? Okay.
All right.
Tutoring business helps you shape how you offer those learning experiences. So again, you don't have to do what other people tell you how to do. You get to shape it.
Yes. All right. Develop the business skills that can carry over into many different areas of your career. So talking about whether it be public speaking or helping find other tutors who need help with growing their business, or creating a tutoring practice where you have multiple tutors working for you. We have some that have done that. There really is.
But even just the basic business skills, it's like invoicing. How do I market? How do I find people? Like it's a different world. You're still teaching, but it's different when you have to also ask for payment, or when you have to find your students. And so those are business skills. And you get to learn them with a tutoring business, and you get to do it slowly. So unlike if you go and open a restaurant, which Emily has family members who open a restaurant, you just are sink or swim. You are just in the deep end, right?
And it's relentless. Right.
But with a tutoring business, you get to learn those skills, work with one student, figure out, okay, what's my payment plan? What are my policies? What are some of these guidelines and boundaries I need to put in without having a whole bunch of people? So you get to kind of slowly build those skills. And that is like a real gift as a business owner, to be able to slowly develop your business owner skills and not have to do it all at once.
Love it. Okay. Earning an income right away for your services. Yes, this is a possibility. You can start creating that income stream right away, even when you start with just one student. One. You just need one to start with.
Yep. You're already cash flow positive in the beginning.
There you go.
You should be, you know.
Thanks, Jean. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you guys. No worries at all. Yeah, I knew we were going to struggle to keep this.
I know. We have so much to say.
Yes. And then one other thing, our last thing on here, is that it helps you to, again, branch out to those other opportunities. But Emily kind of already got into that. So that right there, again, the tutoring business gets you started on that path.
Right. And I don't want to, and let's not minimize that. Honestly, like there really are some very, very creative opportunities out there for collaboration and presenting. If this is something that you're interested in, or running workshops, any kind of outreach, there's a lot out there for sure. Over
the years, as I do different things for TSA, I can't help but think, man, I could totally see how I could do this, but for parents.
Right.
Like, so the different programs we've created for TSA, I'm like, ooh,
always
like
thinking
this,
like
I'm
that.
doing it focused on helping teachers, like with businesses, but I was like, man, I could flip this and help parents with this. Like there really is so much. And so Emily kind of already talked about how this has worked out for her, but Emily, is there anything else you wanted to add to what you've already told us about, like how tutoring led to those other things? Like you started off with tutoring, building those business skills, and then it led you to some other things. Was there anything else you wanted to share about that?
You know, I just think that out of the, when I first had just like my little Orton Gillingham practice, it was like, here I am, just, Orton Gillingham tutoring. And I really didn't have the vision of the wider picture. And I think what drove that was the need for creating that online community. And through the online community, that was where I started to see a broader picture, because I was able, I feel like, to get a pulse on the needs of people outside of my little space. Hearing from parents, hearing from educators, really listening to those pain points and figuring out, wow, this is a big need. And so because of that, I felt drawn to it. I felt a big urge to help and serve. It was just this bit, I was very, very drawn to wanting to serve and help others besides having my private practice. So the online community, I feel like, really drove that bus and provided that that pathway for me. And being able to just start my website with the Literacy Nest and grow it from there, and letting people know, what I was all about. Here I am talking about Orton Gillingham, having a good time with that. But I'm also, talking about dyslexia awareness and the need for us to, drive change through the science of reading and so forth. So there's just so many different facets, I feel like, of the business besides just being, but it really is up to you and how you want to craft this. I have a small part-time private practice, but my online business is much larger. Whereas for some people, it's the opposite. They have a large private practice and maybe just do just like a small social media presence. It's really up to you how you want this all to look. I think Melissa's just, I'm in the Boston area, Melissa. I'm in Massachusetts.
Yes.
Okay. So just so much to consider.
It's like she was hearing what people were needing. You all hear the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys are hearing the same thing. You are hearing what your parents are struggling with. You are hearing what kids are struggling with. You're hearing where are the lack of resources and support in your community. And it could even be that the lack of resources and support might be that you're in a rural community. And so you really have to help people connect to resources that are not readily, easily available. And so the same thing would apply for you all. Like, what are you hearing? Where are you seeing the needs? And so like for me, with the education and tutoring, because I was also in the homeschooling world because my nieces and nephews homeschooled, I was able to see some gaps where families couldn't quite figure out how to get resources that they needed and support without, like, it was either homeschooling or go to school, right? And so, traditional school. And so like by listening to people, you can go, how can I bridge that gap? And then what happened was it transferred. So I had a successful tutoring business. And so that next phase was people started asking me, how did I do it? Right. And so I just started answering more questions. And that was when Emily and I got together, because I was like, well, I figured out how to have a successful tutoring business, full-time practice. I do groups, I do private sessions and all that. And so like, I figured those things out, but man, like so many people, other educators need help. And so we kind of came together, and that's where Tutor Success Academy came from. We had a private membership for a little bit over 2 years. I've coached other educators. I've been a speaker at conferences and summits, and all of those things started because I started this little business and I started developing my business skills. And I realized all of those things could be applicable to so many other opportunities in my life, but I don't know that I would have been able to do them had I not started some type of a business, because that was what gave me that foundation. And so we really do want you thinking about, what does that vision look like for yourself? And it can look little or it can look big. It could look like a small tutoring practice. But again, if you're like, I would love to do a small tutoring practice on the side, but I also am great at book clubs, parent work, whatever it is, right? And thinking, hey, I don't even have to do just a tutoring business, right? Because remember, just is out of our vocabulary. It can be a tutoring business, and it leads to other things that are important to you as well. So now for you all, again, you have your guide, okay? And we want you to take this guide and really like reflect on what, like, this is meant to take you through some practical steps to kind of look at what could be possible for you. Because obviously My journey is not yours. Emily's journey is not yours. Your journey is yours. And so this can kind of help you think through some of those things and the direction that you want to go with those.
And I think it's just
yeah.
so nice, I think, in reflection to get pen to paper. It just offers clarity in the situation. It helps with planning. Obviously, you're through the act of brainstorming. I just think just getting those thoughts out really helps get you to take, I think, a bit more action. When it's on paper, it starts to feel a little more real.
Yes. And we are about to do our Q&A, but we do want to tell you about something that's coming up just very briefly for those of you who might be already thinking about it, might be already in the Tutor Success Academy kind of world, and you already know what's been going on. Because I know for some of you, this sounds great, but the question we kept getting was, but how do I get started? What do I do? Like, it sounds great, but like, how do I do tuition policies? How do I do like all the practical, tactical things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we do want to give you just a heads up. I mean, we're still in early December, but coming in January, we do have our next cohort program starting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll hear a lot more about it, like as we get closer to January 9th. But for those of you who are already going into the holidays and you're kind of thinking you might be wanting to start the new year, getting some of this in motion, right? Like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, I want this to be a possibility for me, but what do I do next? Like, I don't even know what to do with this. We do have a program and it only opens twice a year. And so our winter cohort is starting on January 9th. So Emily, do you want to tell us like just a little bit about what you might not even know what our cohort program is? And so we just want to give you a heads up about it right now, even though it starts in January.
And Pamela, quick question. I was wondering where to get the action guide. So the action guide, the link to that was sent in the email reminder that came out tonight, but it's also in the pop-up Facebook group. So look for it there if you don't see the email. So Tutor Success Academy, this is a cohort that we open up only twice a year. It's an 8-week self-paced course. In addition to the course content, we interact with you every step of the way. We have through a private Facebook group, we do live trainings. We walk you through all aspects of getting that tutoring business up and running. We get into the nitty-gritty, all the nuts and bolts to get you started, like really into the tactics and the strategy of either starting a tutoring business or expanding an existing one. So this is not just for newbies.
Right.
The wonderful thing about Tutor Success Academy is, since it's self-paced, there's, you do it at your own, on your own time when it's convenient for you. The Facebook group is an incredible support. It's probably one of the most powerful tools of the cohort, is having that community there to ask questions and get advice. But I think the beautiful thing is that once you join, you're a lifetime member. So you have access to all the course content. When we add more things to it, forever. So we have members who have gone through the course again, who've watched our live trainings when we come back in twice a year and do them again. We've always found new things to present. We have some new pieces that we're adding on to this particular winter cohort we're excited about. So if this is something that you think you want to give a try, certainly we would love to have you. It is an amazing experience to go through, where you really, I think, feel like you're in that driver's seat for your tutoring business.
Yes. And so it starts on January 9th. And so again, you have plenty of time. We're just like letting you know about this.
Right.
But for those of you who maybe already do know about this, right now we're in our early enrollment period. So we have early enrollment. We had early enrollment for a couple of weeks and it ends on Sunday. So that doesn't mean you can't keep enrolling. You can enroll all the way up until the 9th at like midnight. So we have our kickoff celebration January 9th. It'll be at like 8:30 at night. And that's like a live celebration. And again, like that day is like prizes all over the place and everything. And so it's a really fun day. But so you can register all the way up until then. But because we are in early enrollment, if you decide before, like by Sunday, that you think you would like to do this, you can actually use a promo code to get 10% off. And again, it's like lifetime enrollment. So that 10% off gets you that price. And then you're in there for every little. And so when I'm not screen sharing anymore, I will put the link in here in case you guys want to go look and see what's in it, because right now, like, you're just seeing a little bit. And so you can actually see what the program is all about. And if it's something you were thinking about, use the code early bird to get 10% off. And that's through this Sunday. Okay. So we just wanted to let you know that is through this Sunday. And then, listen, here's
and
Thursday
there are
right here.
With that, whatever with the prices, and Jill will put the link in there. We do have an installment plan, so you can break the payments down to help you budget. And we know during the holiday season, that's really, really important and super helpful. So you can totally, and the coupon code will work with if you choose the installment plan.
Right. And that's the first time I'm doing it, guys, because we do know money is probably one of the biggest concerns, right? That, and of course, like, do I have time to do this? But the time, since you have lifetime access, it doesn't matter. You get in there and you go at whatever pace you want. If you just want to focus on one or two things slowly, that's fine. So we did decide this year for the first time to allow you to use the coupon code on our 3 installment plan. So you can actually take 3 months to pay for it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this so I can put that link in the chat. And then we're going to start answering those questions. So if you have to go, that is totally fine. We know it's late, especially if you're wherever you are. We're going to hang in there as long as we can to answer as many questions as we can. But if we can't get to all of them, I can save them after we're done. And we'll just we'll pop in and do some other type of like answer the questions inside the pop-up group. So that's why we have the pop-up group. So that, like, if we need to, we can keep on going. Okay, you guys? Okay. So I'm going to, if you want to start the Q&A, I'm going to start putting the link in the chat for anybody who wants to go look at it.
All right.
When they leave.
So we're starting. Okay. So let's see. Natalie was asking if you're a teacher or able to tutor students in a private capacity in your same district. Perhaps could other people share their experiences with that? So sometimes there are tutors who are able to contract with public schools as a private tutor to work with them. And so if anybody in the chat wants to pop in, if that's been the case for you, that's fine. Natalie, I have worked with students who have been in a private Montessori school where I've been a contractor for them in the past. And that was a really, really wonderful relationship. So there are opportunities out there if it's not in a public school setting. I know a lot of private schools, even the private school that my children are in now, they have contracted Orton Gillingham teachers that come in to service students. So that is a possibility. Okay, I'm going to hop down. Are any private tutoring businesses 100% virtual, or must one engage in a specific location? We know a ton of tutors out there who are 100% virtual and doing very, very well and meeting students from all over the place. It's really exciting. We are thrilled for them, and they're making it work. They see the power of being able to reach a lot of different students, find lots of families from all over, and they're really very successful. All right. We have,
George, I'm so glad to see you here, because I know George had some great questions in the pop-up group today. And I was like, oh, you're asking all the good questions. So I'm glad you brought your big one.
Thank you. All right, Megan, I'm not a teacher, substitute teacher, a mother of a dyslexic 11-year-old, gained so much knowledge of advocacy, dyslexia, special education, science of reading, signed up for the first 30 hours. Okay. Do you think it's feasible for a fully trained 70-hour associate level of remediation for a person to tutor who is not a teacher? There are people who are not classical trained teachers who went to become classroom teachers who are tutoring. So yes, I do think it's possible for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I know some homeschooling tutors.
It all depends on the kind of tutoring.
Yep. So
yeah,
I do.
Sorry,
yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that is a possibility.
And we definitely know. And also a lot of people go into that field because they had a child who was dyslexic and they had to learn and get trained themselves to help their child. But also when you think about tutoring, there's so many different ways that you can structure support that you do not need to take a traditional path. So I think that's wonderful.
Stacy, this is a great question. So if someone says they're Orton Gillingham trained, but they're not certified, you can be forthright and state that and say, I am trained in the Orton Gillingham approach. So that's certainly something you can communicate to families. And when and if you decide that you want to pursue further and complete your certification, then you can state that then. But I think it's perfectly fine. There are plenty of people who are tutoring who have not pursued that further training to get to the certified level, and done just the 30 hours of OG training.
Right. And I actually started my tutoring business before I did OG training.
Right.
So I just was a reading tutor.
Yeah.
Like that's fine. It's totally fine.
You communicate your expertise through all your advertising when people want to know a little bit about you, whether you have a little website or a little flyer or something like that. Okay. Yeah. Carolyn, I've tutored.
I'm going to click a button because I want to see what happens when I click answer live. Oh, okay, cool. I think it just shows that I've already done it. Okay. I just want to see what happened with that button. Okay. All right. So Caroline.
All right. So there was something about renting office spaces here.
Ooh, wait, where was that? Because I can tell you about that.
Caroline.
Oh, okay. Let me see here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and scan this question real quick. I tutor in public library and they decide it's not appropriate. Yeah, that happens to a lot of libraries actually.
Yep.
Outside. Okay. So it's, okay. Outside of going to a student's house or renting office space, how would you handle this? Okay. So I have had numerous, office type situations. And then I also had a situation where the offices I was sharing with a group of other professionals that work with kids at the last, we thought we were all re-signing the lease and moving on until we were not. And I had like a month to go, wait a minute, I don't have an office anymore. So it made me start to get creative and look for different opportunities. And so, so outside of going to the student's house or renting office space, how would you handle a situation? So I think of a couple different ones. So of course you could just decide, okay, I'm going online. I don't feel like spending any money anywhere. Like that is an option. There are also places in some towns called co-working spaces. And that's where the building allows business owners to rent smaller spaces, like a table, like a nook, like access to a space, but it's not your forever office, but it ensures that you have a space to meet with your client, which would be your student. So a co-working space is an option. Another thing, sometimes we think we don't want to rent an office because maybe we don't want that much responsibility. So what you could also do is, what do we call it when you rent from somebody else?
It's sublet.
Thank you. That's the word, sublet. Okay. So that was another option I looked at. I went into local Facebook business groups. And for example, my friend Jane is a therapist. And when she had her office, there were 2 days a week that she never went into her office. So she subleased it. And so somebody else came in and she was still running things, but for like $100 a month, that person was able to come in the 2 days that she was not using her office and they were able to use it for their work. So that could be an option as well. I would say those would be some of your top options. So if you can't go to a public space, now you could meet at a coffee shop. It depends on your type of services. I have done that before. I could not do that with a wiggly kid with ADHD and dyslexia, but I could do that with a teen who is working on research papers and writing and things like that.
Right.
So
it depends.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
can be options like that. I have also met in coffee shops before, but again, it was for teenagers, not for young kids.
Yes.
And
yes.
so that has worked too.
Great.
So yeah, so I would say just kind of start thinking, ask, see if there's a local business group and go, hey, what kind of rental options are out there? And you might find a sublease or a co-working space or something like that, that again, wouldn't be completely free. So again, like if you want to keep it completely free, it's got to be your house, their house, meet at a public place or online. Like, so that would be if you wanted to keep it free.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Cool.
Lauren had asked, do you tutor during the school day or just after and on weekends? So Lauren, I've had students that I've tutored during the school day in the past. But I have mainly tutored students either before school or after school. I do not tutor on the weekends. Some tutors do, if that works for your schedule. And for others. So that's the beauty of the business, is that you get to create the schedule that works for you. But yes, I have during the school day, especially, if you end up tutoring online, you're in different time zones, definitely can work out. I'm not going to get into the OG training compared to letters in this particular training. That's something we can talk about at another time, because that's a much deeper conversation. Not really something that we planned on discussing tonight. All right, dealing with cancellations, Jill.
Yeah, and we will say in TSA, we don't focus on the instructional side.
No.
So just so you know, in TSA, we really try to prioritize the business side of running a tutoring business, and less the certifications and things like that, because there are other groups. Emily has her Orton Gillingham group. That is a great place to look at those kinds of things. So just to kind of let you know that, even though obviously we totally know why you would ask that here, right? I do want to go back to Lauren's question really quickly for tutoring during the school day or just after school and on the weekends, because for me, when I started my business, I intentionally from day one knew that I was going to be focusing on not only working with school kids, but also working with homeschooling students. So for me, that was how I saw kids during the day and didn't have to work on weekends, other than when I was building my business during my last year of teaching. So during my last year of teaching, I did tutor on Saturdays because I ran out of afternoons. So I could completely have a full practice just working with homeschoolers if I wanted to. So that's like another way of looking at how you can really create a schedule that kind of works that way. So, okay. So Thibodeau, I hope I'm saying that. Oh, is it Rachel Thibodeau, or
I think it's Rachel Thibodeau. I think so.
Okay, there we go. Got it. Okay, so how do you deal with cancellations? And how many hours per week do you recommend? So again, we can briefly cover this. We go way in depth in the cohort. Yeah. Like way in depth. We actually give you a system that you can just implement and not even have to think about it if you like the system that I've created. So, and a lot of tutors in our cohort like the system. They're like, yes, thank you. You saved me. So basically, in a nutshell, how we handle cancellations is different for every person. You have to decide what works for you and your life and everything, what you need as far as income stability. Some people don't need to rely on this income. And so it may be okay to have more cancellations. I will just speak for me, but also how I've set things up that I also share with tutors in our cohort. And so I ran the numbers one year to figure out how many cancellations could I afford per child, right? Because if they're canceling 3 times a month, I can't pay my bills. There was a set number of cancellations I could accept. And so what I do is I use a tuition model. And what that means is I take how much I charge them for all their sessions for an academic year is how I do it. And then I build in the days that I will allow to be cancellations without a credit, where I don't say, sure, I'll just take it off your bill. So for me, that's 2 a year, 1 per semester, where a student can cancel and they will not be charge to hold their spot and hold their space, because if they're canceling a lot, somebody else could have been in that spot. Right.
Right.
And so for me, I use a tuition model. I build in the number of cancellations that I will like allow as far as everything else gets paid. I build in the holidays, and then they get a set payment they pay every single month. I know that is a very general way of describing it. In the cohort, just so you know, we give you the system. We literally give you the sheet that you just change the student name and like plug in 2 other things, and like you have it set up for you if you like that idea. So that is one thing. Another way that some people do it though is they just simply say, if you cancel within 48 hours, you won't be charged.
Right.
And that's fine too. As long as you can afford it. That's a problem. Is sometimes we can't afford it, but we just like let people like do it, and then we can't afford to pay our bills, and then we can't keep our tutoring business open, and then that doesn't work. Okay.
Right.
So yeah. And then how many hours per week do you recommend? I don't know if that means for the student or for tutors. So I'm going to take it from the tutor point of view. I'd say depends on the tutor. Full-time can often be around 20 hours, 20 sessions a week is about full-time-ish, but again, it goes up for some people. And so it really does depend. And it depends on how much you charge. Okay. Emily, do you want to do the next one?
So let's see.
Mahalia.
What are the steps in creating a business? Am I at that one?
Yes.
I am a SPED teacher and OG trained, but don't want to quit. So that's really, I think, a very big question to try and answer right now when we just have a couple of minutes left. I would absolutely recommend checking out the TSA YouTube channel, because we do lots and lots of little free trainings there. I would also go on the Tutor Success Academy website, because there are really helpful and free offerings there. Definitely keep in touch with us on our email list. Sign up for that so you get our weekly emails. But really, the first steps in creating a business, I think, is to think about the logistics, where you want to tutor, creating a schedule, the physical space, and thinking about how much you need to make in order to be successful. And those things are really going to drive the way everything goes. And then you go into, creating your policies and procedures and putting systems in place to keeping things organized. Okay.
Cohort program is the most in-depth way we have of helping people build businesses, but we also know not everybody is going to be ready for that. And sometimes people want to just get started and they don't even want to wait for the cohort. They're like, January, I need like stuff now. So go to all those free resources. Right. But you can also look on our website, and we actually have a Get Started Tutoring bundle. If you're like, love all the free stuff, but I kind of want something to guide me a little bit more in those first steps, we do have a resource for that at tutorsuccessacademy.com. Because again, those first steps, like, yes, we can tell you that when you get started. Okay. So Rachel, I think we kind of talked a little bit about marketing, the 8 to 2 spot, like homeschooling, working with schools, like some charter schools, independent schools, private schools sometimes. Right. Yeah. And then also the time zones, like Emily mentioned. So like if you have an option to do some online, that works because you can work with a student during the day, your time, but after school, their time. And so that can be a really lovely way to do that.
Right.
So yeah. So this one is great one. This one is one that like there's a lot of discussions about in our private group. And that is, do you include any sort of pro bono or low cost tutoring for low income families? So again, that is where, so we like to walk tutors through that whole, like, what do you want your tutoring business to do as far as the impact you want to make, but also what are your income goals? Like, do you have a set number? Like, does it need to meet a certain amount for your income in order to be able to pay your bills and to survive and things like that? And then if so, how do you weave in pro bono or low cost tutoring for low income families? So there are lots of different ways to do that. Some people, some of our tutors choose one spot and they save one tutoring spot for pro bono work, right? So like that is just like a scholarship, and that's how they do that. Or they might have a sliding scale. I don't know tons of tutors in our program that have a sliding scale to actually tell you how that would work, because I've not done that. I had some certain things where I would make it available to where I would have a spot either for free or very low cost, like $5. But I could only afford to do like one of those per like situation. So for that, it really, you would have to look at your overall, can you afford to do it first, right? Like, can you afford to make, to find that spot? People tend to decide this meant like one or two spots pro bono, or reduced fee. And then you decide, are you just going to have a conversation with the parent, or are you going to like actually establish guidelines for like who would qualify for that? And so it really depends on how structured you want that to be, or if you just wait for a family to reach out to you and you just kind of take it by situation. Mm-hmm. So yeah. This one's definitely for you, Emily.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Natalie. I appreciate the shout out for that. Yes, I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed writing those and creating that. So thank you so much. So Jill, how many more do you think we can, we're coming up.
Let me see how many
we have quite a few more questions, but
we won't be able to do all
2 hours.
Okay. Yeah. So tell you what, one or two of these we've already, I think answered. So hold on a minute. So Sarah, I think we kind of, I believe this question came in.
We went into that.
TSA. Yeah. So yes, we're good. I'm just looking to see if there's any that we can answer quickly, but like I said, whatever we don't get to, I'll go in and do a Facebook Live and answer it, if Emily and I can't get together, because sometimes schedules could be hard for both of us to be available at the same time. Mm-hmm. So let me see here really quickly. Specific questions about business and all that, resources, financial pieces. Okay, so here is something that we do. So in TSA, we do not give you contracts or like financial, like tax things that a qualified professional needs to give you. So we do not pretend we're CPAs, but we do help you with cash flow, invoicing, billing, all that stuff. But we tell you that, like in the cohort, you can ask other people, but we say never Facebook your way to getting professional advice that should be from a lawyer or a CPA, or even just going to look at right now I'm drawing a blank on the website that covers small businesses in the United States of America. But like there are resources on there that will tell you what you need, but a lot of times it's based on your state. So like LLCs is based on your state and things like that. We don't talk about entry pieces as far as how to do assessments and things like that, but we do talk about setting up systems for when a student comes in, what are the pieces to have in place and things like that. And so for these are all those types of conversations happen within the cohort because they're a part of bigger modules.
Right.
As far as setting up the basics of your foundations and your payment systems and things like that. So that one, the resource would be the cohort. So just let you know about that.
Okay.
All right, tell you what, let's answer one more and the rest we will just like move to the pop-up group in the next day or two. I promise we will answer them. All right. I love this. Let's answer Aaron's last because this comes up in the cohort all the time and literally just this week came up again. What do you call yourself? So when somebody's like, oh, what do you do for a living? And you're not like a classroom teacher, right? What do you call yourself? I love that because I will tell you, I never did quite get the elevator speech down. It always sounds a little different every time I talk about what I do. And so this is where go ahead.
I use my credentials. So I either say I am an Orton Gillingham certified dyslexia specialist, and I tutor privately with dyslexia or reading intervention. That's one thing that I have explained to most of my people who ask me what I do in private practice. So I use the credentials that I've been given based on my certifications through the Academy of Orton Gillingham and through the International Dyslexia Association. But if you don't have those, you can say that you are an academic support specialist. If you would like to call yourself that, you could call yourself an academic tutor.
There are so many different things.
There are a lot of, I mean,
right. Keep an eye out on our page, because we asked this question last week on the public page, and we've been having discussion in the group, and I have it. I'm just like gathering the different ideas that I've heard from different people of some different ways that you can call yourself what you call yourself, because there really are so many ways. And so it really kind of comes from being clear that you're not misrepresenting yourself, right? And then 2, just finding the words and the vocabulary that makes the most sense. So it could even just be a private literacy instructor. Oh, I'm a private math instructor. Or if you have a lot more training, I'm an interventionist, or I'm a whatever. You just want to make sure that so like, this is something that you don't like I said, just this week, our tutors in our community, there's a whole conversation going on right now about, I think I'm going to shift from using this word to this word in how I describe my role. And it's all because sometimes you go one to begin with, and then you realize, actually what I do is either a little bit more specialized, or more broad and more general. And maybe I want to, be a coach, a literacy coach. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it. And so there's not one way to do it, but I will have a post coming out soon on the Facebook and Instagram pages with some ideas.
Good. All right. I love that idea.
Just because you get to decide how do you describe your services. So. Awesome.
Right.
Okay, you guys. So we'll answer the rest of these questions in the pop-up group. And we will be sending out like a follow-up email to this, making sure you have links to everything you need. But thank you so much for being here with us. We
so much.
Really love it. And we can't believe it's been, almost 2 hours now. So if you are still here with us, wow.
Thank you.
I think when we do the replay, we will do timestamps, which is what we normally do in the cohort. So you can go to different parts. So, all right, you guys, see you later.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.